Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. Happy Dingus Day in Buffalo, for those who don't know what Dingus Day is.
Nobody knows what that is.
Yes. Not so happy in the 416, and we'll discuss that. But, Russ, we have a pre-show to start with.
Yeah, so yesterday in the Met game, another flaw with Major League Baseball's review policy came up.
That's right.
Robinson Cano got hit with a pitch on his hand. He backed off because, when you back off the plate, you get it. So his bat moved a couple inches. The home plate umpire apparently slept through it, but he called him hit by pitch. And then the third base, the Cardinals appeal. The third base umpire says, no, he swung. It's a strike.
Right.
And so what happens here with this now is because they say he swung, it's not reviewable. Now, again, I don't know how if you're the home plate umpire, you can miss that call because the guy's hit right in front of you. The guy's coming out of the game, the trainer's on the field, the guy's coming out of the game shaking his hand because his hand got hit with 93-mile-an-hour pitch. And Major League Baseball says, no, it's a strike, so get back in there. And it's like he can't get back in there because he's hurt. So, of course, he strikes out and, they go to the next batter. I think that's what happened.
Does he swing with one hand?
I don't remember what happened. I just was so in shock of the whole situation. It was just weird. I was doing other work. But at the end of the day, just because a play says it's not reviewable because a home plate umpire screwed up, there has to be a higher power there that says, you know what? This guy got hit. We need to look at the video here because something happened.
They can't. They will not open that door, Russ, because then
they have to open the door.
Well, then they have.
What if the guy had a broken hand? What if he's out for the year?
Well, I mean, then the umpire should call the friggin' call the right way. Then
well, he should. I mean, that's what you would hope, but. But
did it happen by magic that he broke a couple metacarpals? I mean, my God. So anyway, just to go along the injury track here, and I know Russ is going to be playing the violin or singing.
I'm playing it.
Yeah. 13 players on the disabled list. I refuse to call it the IL because Rob Manfred may fine me for not calling it the IL, but it's the DL. It'll be the DL until I die. But 13 players, almost their entire starting lineup of the New York Yankees is out, and they're still 500, which I think is a miracle with all those injuries. But
props to Luke Voigt and the rest of the boys.
Yeah, and guys that I saw the Buffalo Bisons play the Yankees AAA team a couple weeks ago in their home opener. Half the guys on Scranton Wilkes-Barre are with the Yankees now. I mean, that's how bad it is.
LeMahieu, all those guys. Yeah.
No, I mean, but I hear, and this is the thing. I hear some of the most ridiculous crap on sports talk radio. I got my start in sports talk radio as a caller.
Right.
But apparently I had the reputation, if you can believe it, Russ, of being grounded, of being sort of real, not being like one of these guys who let's trade Matt Sundin for a bag of pucks type of thing.
Yeah.
But the hosts have taken over with the hyperbole. They are the ones who have, it's and he's in jail now, so he can't do it anymore. But the Craig Cartons with the sensationalistic bull crap. And honestly, who wants to listen to that? After about 10 minutes, I want to turn that crap off.
Well, that's why they invented satellite radio and other mediums, podcasts, and otherwise. And I don't know if terrestrial radio realizes they're all eating into their business model. And at some point, some of these stations are not going to have the ratings because people are going to be sick of it and they're not going to go back to it.
Now, I can just imagine, Peter, and we'll talk about this now, how sports talk radio in Winnipeg is dealing with the results of the weekend. So let's start the show and we'll get in there. Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, April 22nd, 2019.
I'm Peter Tessier in Blue Skies Golf Season, Winnipeg.
There you go. I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and a certain team wearing blue and white is probably going to be booking bookings at Glen Abbey soon. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with Winnipeg. Like I said at the beginning, we'll talk about the games from the weekend after that. But the Winnipeg Jets lose to the St. Louis Blues, get eliminated in 6 games. A little bit surprising, but these were 2 pretty equal teams. But the thing I was struck by, Peter, was the domination by the Blues in Game 6. Jaden Schwartz with the hat trick, and a late rush by Winnipeg, scoring to narrow the lead to 3-2 in the final minute. But pretty much it was a thorough thrashing by the Blues on the Jets.
It was an utter beatdown. Is what it was. The score does not reflect what happened in that game. There was one Jet who came to play, and his name was Connor Hellebuck, and that's it. Things went from not bad. They went from stupid to ridiculous on the opening goal when Paul Maurice somehow thought he could get that overturned. Then when he needed to get one overturned, he had no timeout to use. And a clear goalie interference one on the second Schwartz goal. That probably would have maybe changed it. That was probably the only opportunity to change the trajectory of the game. And he needed it then. The knives are coming out now in Winnipeg. There's a lot of blame storming going on. I don't know if it made much news down there or around, but first question asked, Blake Wheeler told Paul Fried, the post-season interviews have just wrapped up down at the MTS Center. There's been some interesting comments.
Yes.
Jacob Trouba says, we'll worry about it at the contract table. Get ready. Mike, you and I will have some fun games to play about how the Leafs can land Trouba, right? We've got an off season to talk about that. Blake Wheeler said he'd run through a wall for Paul Maurice. Patrick Laine admitted he had a small groin injury that nothing he couldn't play through, but had some back injuries down the stretch in the season. Josh Morrissey had a separated shoulder, was not 100% coming in. And
Morrissey had a good game. That's the funny thing about it.
Yeah,
and I thought
Morrissey's smart enough, Russ, that he knows the best way to get to be a good defenseman is to get the puck out of your own end.
Right.
So he makes a good pass and stuff.
And I thought Laine played good in the series. I mean, he
did. As he said, his back I think healed up, but the groin issue was there. But he said nothing he couldn't handle.
Right.
But what groin's right. You're getting a lot of treatment. You're missing games, and you're missing practices. And eventually they catch up with you.
Sure.
Right. Over time it does. Tyler Myers said he is open to talking to Chevy about a contract extension. Andrew Kopp talked about the juggling of contracts that has to come and raises coming. And he was nudged by Adam Lowry, meaning like, you're getting one too. And there's a few more things, but at the end of the day, this is a team that underperformed since January in many facets. Highly skilled, enough skill to compensate for major issues, the major fundamental flaws lying underneath. So here's where it goes now. If you're doing exit interviews with Paul Maurice, you better be doing them with Kevin Cheveldayoff as well, because
I'm sure they are.
Because something is not right within that group.
Now, let me just interject. Let me just interject for a second and ask you this, because Darren Drager said this on Toronto radio this morning regarding this series, regarding the Jets. He thought that Cheveldayoff and Maurice are not in danger of losing their jobs, and thought that the voluminous amounts of free agents had an effect on the Jets during the season. I don't think that's I don't know. I think that's minimal. I mean, I think that, that's something you worry about in the summer. I think, you have to be focused on the playoffs when you're in the playoffs. So I don't think that the distractions of what am I going to get as a free agent is going to really kick in until after the playoffs are over with. I mean, what do you think of that, Peter?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's sort of the right way to look at it. I mean, Kevin Cheveldayoff is not in danger of losing his job.
Right.
I don't think Paul Maurice is either. But the level of criticism coming at Maurice is very significant. But it's coming from fans.
Sure.
And we all know fan bases, they have their outspoken ones, but 80% of them are just happy to be seeing the games and experiencing hockey as entertainment. They're not as emotionally invested in all the other things than watching your team win. Where, excuse me, this sort of leads to is the Jets have a huge volume of free agents. They have a Winnipeg Free Press reporter who wrote a very significant piece heading into the playoffs about discontent and infighting within the team.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably going to be more of that to come out over time, particularly as people leave. I think you'll hear some things and rumors will come out. Excuse me. So the questions for the Jets that come now are: does Cheveldayoff know where the problem lies in the room, what it is specifically, and what caused this friction? And did Paul Maurice understand it and not know how to deal with it? Because they're two important questions. One, if there is a problem, where did the problem lie? And did the coach understand what the problem is? Because those kind of problems, if you don't address them properly, can come up again. And if the coach hasn't learned or understood what the issue was, then you got two things to deal with. Furthermore, did anyone understand the issue? And why would you go and then hope you could trade yourself out of the solution by adding players into the room like a Hayes, a Beaulieu and stuff, and think that would help if you had these underlying issues?
Right.
The Jets have 3 picks in the draft coming up. I mean, so for 2 years in a row now, playoff position, Kevin Cheveldayoff has felt the need to trade a first-round pick and a player or prospect to find second-line or third-line center support for the team.
Right. So they're in a similar.
There's issues.
All right. So here's what I take from a lot of this. First thing is, in the loss, Dustin Byfuglien on that first goal. What the hell are you doing? You got in the way of your goaltender. Like, that's something where, you know what? That's unforgivable. And I got to tell you, I again will go out on a limb and say, if you could, trade him. Trade him. Because the hockey sense isn't there anymore. He's not the same guy that barrels in the crease like he did for Chicago. He had moments that were good. He's not consistent. Let him go somewhere else.
His injuries are increasing.
Yeah. Let him go somewhere else. Send him to Arizona. Send him to Florida.
Yeah, but Russ,
Allen wants him.
The problem is that with that contract, even though it's short, even though it's what is it, a year or two? I think it's
2 more years, I think.
Yeah, at over $7 million. I think he's starting to slow down. His injury-prone nature is increasing. I don't know whether, like, if you want to make a hockey trade and you want to get talent for talent there, I don't know if you're going to get enough talent in a deal for Byfuglien that it makes it worth your while. I mean, if you can clear his salary out, Russ, and then re-sign Trouba, okay.
That would be the hope. That would be the hope. Second thing, you made the trade for Kevin Hayes. I don't fault them for making the trade because sometimes trades can work out great. Yeah. I get you have to trade picks once in a while. They never traded picks. I wouldn't blame it all on Cheveldayoff. I would blame some of it on ownership because I'm sure they were pushing the buttons saying we've got to get further than we've been getting. We need to get to the cup. So getting past that, you knew when you added Kevin Hayes, he's still not the smartest player and he's not a good playoff performer. End of the day, he's got 13 points in 40 games, 3 points in 6 games. Like, that's Kevin Hayes. And unfortunately, the package is better than the result. Everybody, when you watch Kevin Hayes, hey, he skates great. Sometimes he plays with aggression. Sometimes he does this. Sometimes he does that. He never does it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On that, Peter?
One of the other things, so talking about Hayes in that trade, and the Jets were, they were very much in on Mark Stone right up until the end.
Yeah.
And the reason they didn't get Mark Stone was because they weren't giving up on Sami Niku. That's the crux, right?
Okay.
But knowing that you've got Myers and Trouba, who one or two of them are gone, and potentially Bufflin being done in 2 years, right? You can't be giving up Sami Niku. You don't have anything else.
Right.
You've got Logan Stanley, and that's basically it. And maybe Sandberg, but he's better than I do, but he's a little ways off yet.
Well, I mean, there's going to have to be some sort of, and I'm not saying blow up the room, but what we're talking about here is that teams, and we'll talk about Toronto and in a minute, because there's going to be some changes with them, changes with Tampa, changes with Pittsburgh when it comes to salary cap, and you have players, especially Pittsburgh. We talked about last week about the possibility of them trading Kessel or Malkin, which I don't think is going to happen, but they're going to have to move out salary, maybe even Letang. Sometimes teams have to make that move to be able to sort of reset the roster or have different voices come up in the room. And, maybe that's what's going to happen this summer. I mean, you're going to have to sign Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor was one of your better performers in the playoffs. You got to get Laine under contract and not a bridge deal. I think, you're probably in the best position to get a cost-effective deal because he didn't have a really consistent regular season. You probably can get him for less than 10.
I think so. And so
I think so. I mean, there's Kyle Connor's a goal scorer, but there's warts to his game.
Oh, sure. But end of the day, he has speed and goal scoring. He's never going to be a complete player. He does get some assists, but he's not. That's his game. He's never going to be strong defensively. That's Kyle Connor's game. But
the last thing you want to do is push the Laine contract down the road 2 years, have him put up a 50-goal year, and then have to pay him $10-11 million. You want to get him locked up now at the end of his ELC, or on a deal that's beneficial for you.
I'll tell you someone who does play a strong defensive game that sort of doesn't really have a great role, and it's because of Brian Little, and I think Brian Little needs to go too. He's a diminishing asset.
He'd have to agree to it. I've heard two rumors around Brian Little. One, I have heard that the Canucks have interest in him, but Brian Little has a no move, no trade clause this year. In 2020, it's open game. He can be exposed.
I still would try and trade him now, because what I think's happening is he's blocking Roslovic's path. He really is. And I'm not saying he's hurting Roslovic's development, but I'm just saying at this point, Little's not giving you enough to occupy the spot he is on the team. But again, if he's locked in contract-wise, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? But the other problem is that the combination of Ehlers, Little, and Laine does not work.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
It's not a trio that works. So
two questions. Let me ask you these two, and then we'll go on to the other game. One, Tanev is a UFA. Now, he's a fourth liner, but I think he's an energy guy and effective in his role. With all the contracts, I mean, what are the chances that he comes back?
Well, he'd come back, but he won't come back at 1.5 million, 1.15 million. You're gonna have, if you're the Jets, you're gonna have to make a decision between Brandon Tanev or Andrew Kopp, and I think we know which way you go. You go with Andrew Kopp if you're allocating money. Yeah. The other thing is you let Tanev go, because you know who else played well when he was here, and I liked him, and I think he could be that kind of guy that he won't be as fast as Tanev because few are, but Par Lindholm, who's an RFA, and they control his structure. So you're going to let Tanev go, and you're going to bring Lindholm in and let him be that other guy. And Par Lindholm was a very effective guy on the forecheck, just not as fast as Tanev.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit of a mistake with the Leafs because it didn't give him any options at fourth line center. I think Gauthier, the way he's. And the other question was, could they trade Ehlers to open up space for somebody else?
Absolutely. So look, let's.
I don't think he's tradable through 2024, 25. I don't say absolutely.
It's $6 million, Russ. It's not ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's a long term.
$6 million with no restrictions. They can send him anywhere.
Sure, but nobody wants that kind of term. That's the problem.
They love that term because he's only 23.
They don't love that.
It's
and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more years.
Yeah, you have to be invested in the player, though,
right?
To want to do that, and he's not played well.
Look,
no, he hasn't.
I'll say one thing about this because I'm going to be writing about it a lot, and then we can move on. The Jets have a lot of options to make some very significant moves and change the dynamic of this team on a whole bunch of levels. The one thing that's not going to happen is you're not going to trade Jacob Trouba for his equivalent.
Right.
You're going to get Jacob Trouba, and you're going to get someone else back in a different position, probably a forward if you find a deal. Right. And then you're going to have to trade another forward to get back what you want with Jacob Trouba in some capacity.
Can I raise my hand, Mr. Tessier, with an idea? Yeah, no. Okay.
Well, we know, Mike, you and I will be talking about this until it's time.
You petition Kevin Cheveldayoff, I'll petition Kyle Dubas.
I'll just tell you this, Peter. This is not the year to trade Ehlers anyhow, coming off a bad year.
Yeah.
But that kind of term, just because he's a young player, it doesn't mean he hasn't already crested and he's on his way down. You have to find a team that wants him for 6 years. Right. It won't be easy.
There'll be believers out there, Russ. I don't think this is like a Victor Rask scenario.
But for the amount that they're going to ask to get back, which, again, he will ask for a lot back, I don't think the trade's going to happen.
Okay, well, let's move on here. Just quickly touch on the two games that are going on tonight. Two teams up 3-2 with a chance to clinch their series. The Capitals destroyed Carolina on Saturday night. It was, I believe, 6-0, Russ. I watched some of that game. I didn't catch the video that a lot of people, the play that a lot of people were talking about on Saturday, and then the next day where Alex Ovechkin undressed Dougie Hamilton. But you did see it, and you thought that it was sort of misrepresented, the criticism.
Yeah, I think he was expecting the puck to carry him back out. It didn't. So everybody jumps to conclusions, and they have all this Dougie Hamilton hate. You know, Dougie Hamilton's had a nice playoffs. This team's not losing because of Dougie Hamilton. This team's losing because Peter Mrazek is back to having an .888 save percentage. That's a big reason, and their defense is letting them down a bit. That's another reason. And it's not, and again, there's a lot of guys. I'm watching Justin Hawk on the power play not really connect on the power play. I mean, that's another issue where it's like, what are you paying him for at this point? Like, what is Justin Falk? Tell me. I used to have higher hopes for him. Now I don't know what he is.
He's a 4. He's a power play defense, and that's about it.
Okay.
That's why during the summer when people were asking for a first round pick and something for Justin Falk, I'm like, are you high? I mean, no. I like him.
That used to be what he was worth. Like that back in the day
used to be.
Correct. And that's what I'm getting at is, what is he worth? He's got 2 points in the playoffs. Like, if Justin Falk has 2 points in the playoffs, he's not helping you defensively. Yeah. He's really not. And so that's something where that's hurting my team. Like, that's something where I have to look at that and say, what is that doing for me? Now, no Svechnikov is hurting them. There's no question. Because if nothing else, he's another guy you have to account for with a lot of skill on the ice.
And no Ferland, too.
Yeah, and no Ferland, too, has hurt them. I mean, those things have hurt them. But, Hamilton has 4 points in 5 games. He is not the problem. But, again, they're going to go into next year, and they need a goalie again. And this is a continuing problem that they're going to have to solve now. Now, will it be Ned Jelkovic who won the AHL Goal of the Year? Maybe. I like him. He's a little short, but he does play well. And he's like Saros in that regard.
I did hear a theory about goaltenders during the offseason where the LA Kings are probably not trading Jonathan Quick, and either Jack Campbell or Cal Peterson, who both showed that they could play in the league in limited stints this year, might be who Rob Blake shops. And Carolina and a couple other teams are going to be looking for goaltenders. So those are possibilities. They're not eliminated yet, so we have to deal with the here and now. But I think they're going to be on that goaltender market, and there are not a ton of names out there, but there are.
Okay, so here's my thinking on that. I like Cal Peterson, but if I'm going to go and trade for Cal Peterson, I might as well just use Ned Jelkovic and see where I'm at and worry about it down the line. I need somebody more guaranteed.
Right.
And if I can't get that, then you know what? Then I've got to use what I have within.
Well, and then maybe
a goalie overseas. Find one in a different league.
And maybe it'll be a sort of a Buffalo scenario where they go for a veteran guy and have Nedeljkovic come in and play 25 to 30 games and ease him in. The other series. Nashville down 3-2 to the Dallas Stars. Dallas doing most of their damage with the big line with the Radulov, Sagan, and Ben. Ben Bishop is playing really well in that series. Again, the thing that I was critical and concerned about from the Nashville perspective was their ability to score enough, and they're not. And Rene had one really great game and then was terrible. Yep. So I mean, I didn't think that it was a big stretch, Peter, for Dallas to beat Nashville, but I still am a little surprised.
Yeah, I am too. But I think Dallas has more horsepower up front, just particularly because Sagan, Ben, and Radulov can absolutely make your life miserable. But also, Bishop's better than Rene, and simple as that. And that's what's Bishop's played awesome, and Dallas, yeah.
I'm not surprised by that. It's just durability for him.
Durability, but also the other thing is Nashville's defense has not looked very solid. Yeah. They've made a lot of mistakes. They haven't played as a unit, and in Nashville, just like the Jets, you wonder, has the coach taken them as far as he can possibly get them? Mm-hmm. And should it be looked at? I like what Peter Laviolette does. He came in at the right time for Nashville, but I don't think he's going to be able to reboot this and get it back to where it was 2 years ago when they were in the Stanley Cup final.
Well, but I don't think this is the time to fire a coach because there's too many teams that need a coach. Like Carl Taylor is the Admirals coach. They're not going to elevate him. Who are you getting that's better than Peter Laviolette other than making a change for change sake?
You don't necessarily need – see, that I think that's the wrong way of thinking, Russ. I think with coaches, you're not looking to say who's better than him because you can't measure that.
Okay, just
measuring on reputation. What you need to measure on is who's going to get us to the place we need to be. And that's why I think there's a lot of criticism about NHL GM circles is they just go to the next name on the list and recycle through. They need to look at being a lot more innovative.
Maybe Scott Sandelin is the answer, Russ. I mean, you never know, but
I just don't think that's the route they're going to go. Because
I think the route they're going to go, and we're doing the postmortem when they're not even dead yet.
Right.
But I think the move that's going to happen here, because Yossi's got a year left in his contract and is going to be due a big raise. They've re-signed Ellis. They have Ekholm under contract. I think they're going to trade PK Subban because they can, his cachet is big, his reputation is big, and his salary is big. And if you move him, and now they have Fabro in the fold, I don't think it makes sense to trade Fabro for an established.
They're not trading Fabro. Yeah. I don't even think they'll trade Subban. To be honest, I don't even think that.
Well, they can't keep Yossi then. I don't think they can do both.
They may not be able to keep Yossi. That's going to be the X factor here. Is he going to be willing to take a little less? I don't know if he will because he's taken a little less all the way until now, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I'm not surprised about based on what you and I have discussed and what we talked about at the draft. There's a coming of age with Miro Heiskanen. He has been unbelievable.
Yes.
He is. I mean, this guy is going to be – he's a number one defenseman probably already. And he's, 20? I mean, it's So
he's tremendous.
Okay. The two series that were extended to 7 games last night, we'll start with San Jose surprising many.
I picked Sharks in 7. Not surprising.
I know. I said many, and that didn't say all. But
It's one of the few I got.
I took the Sharks too, I believe. So
I think you did too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the Sharks win 2-1 in double overtime. Strangely, on a shorthanded breakaway goal by Tomas Hertl. Martin Jones, after playing badly in some games earlier in the series, played really well last night. So did Marc-Andre Fleury, although the game-winning goal was a little smelly. But I can't blame him because he was. I mean, what did he make? Oh, yeah, he only made 27 saves. It was 59 to 29.
Yeah.
But now it goes 7, and I mean, Russ, as we know, 7 is anybody's game.
I watched this intently, and what I came away from in this game was the veterans for San Jose locked this game down for him. I mean, Martin Jones played great. So for all the Martin Jones haters, he played the best game of the playoffs, and he needed to. For all the people that back Mike Smith, Martin Jones and Marc-Andre Fleury made saves routinely in this game, one after the other, that Mike Smith made a couple of his entire series. So again, that's why I say if he was the best player, these guys, this was a goalie clinic. Joe Thornton skated better in this game than I've seen him skate in 2 or 3 years. It was funny because Steve Koulias, who's Sirius XM, he put like overtime scorers, and he put like Evander Kane and somebody for Vegas, and I just put 62 Kevin LeBanc and nobody for Vegas because I said the Sharks are winning this game. Because what I was noticing was some of the youth like Timo Meier and LeBanc had fresh legs because they were. Especially LeBanc was only played like 12 minutes going into overtime. So I knew with his skill, he could be a factor, and he was getting shot after shot. Like Fleury made one save where he was out at the blue paint. Right. If he didn't do that, the game would have been over. And that's sometimes what you have to do as a goalie. That's the other reason I was sort of rough on Smith, because I didn't see Smith go to the blue paint much. Now, I didn't watch every minute of that series, but I'm just saying these are the kinds of things. So, but I also saw Erik Karlsson playing the right kind of minutes. Remember, we talked about that.
Right.
So it's not a detriment. He was holding on to the puck really well. That was good. Brent Burns really stood up and was just a force physically and a force offensively. Joe Pavelski played his best game, I felt, of the series. Just they were playing great mistake-free hockey with their veterans and getting a lot of chances. And you knew at some point, based on, and again, we've talked about it, Vegas's defense not being fantastic, that even though they suppress shots and the shot totals aren't there, they give up some glorious chances. They do. And they gave up a lot of glorious chances in both overtimes. And that's really what I'm talking about with Vegas's defense.
Peter, I heard a stat that I couldn't believe. Erik Karlsson, apparently they've given up, the Sharks have given up 21 goals in the series. Erik Karlsson has been on the ice for 15 of them.
Wow. I had not heard that.
Yeah, I mean
but I haven't heard a lot about Erik Karlsson in general.
No, he's been getting some points, and like I said, in that game, his puck possession was great.
Yeah,
I felt it was great.
Now they put the whistles away in that game. There were a couple.
Oh no, there were some guys were killing each other.
Again, are we looking at another NHL offseason where we're significantly questioning the way the officials view the rules and time?
Yeah, because it started with goaltender interference at the beginning of the year, and it's gone straight through.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad, hasn't it?
I have to say, being completely unbiased, I didn't see it live, but I got home, and we're not switching, but I just want to bring this up because of the controversial call on Friday. I didn't see the disputed Matthews goal with Tuukka Rask in the Boston-Toronto game in Game 5 until after I got home. And I watched it, and I'm like, how can they not call this goalie interference? Because Hyman wasn't pushed by a Boston player. He pushed off a Boston player and back into the goaltender.
Right.
And Bruce Cassidy said after the game, I hope they didn't determine this was a goal that should be upheld because Rask wouldn't have gotten over to stop the shot anyway. Interference is interference. And I'm like, how is that? I from a personal point of view, because I want to see the Leafs make a nice long run, I was happy with it. But if I was a Bruins fan and that happened, I'd be tearing down the walls.
At this point, I don't know what goaltender interference is anymore. I was okay with the call simply because I'm just tired of goals being taken off the board in important games because they're hard enough to come by. That's my problem. And it's got to be so obvious and ridiculous for me to take one off the board. That's
you know what was obvious and ridiculous, and I posted it on my Saturday blog if anybody wants to look at it. Carl Koliakovo posted a photo of the Bruins goal right before the Bruins goal. Krejci scored with 43 seconds left in the third period, right. And Pasternak is holding the puck on the blue line, and Marchand is a foot inside the blue line, and they called it a goal.
Yeah.
So what the hell were you looking at then? Because that was the wrong call. I mean, that's what I mean. If you're gonna take 5 minutes and piss and and chew on this damn thing in the situation room in Toronto, how about getting it right? It's not a judgment call. It's either interference or not. It's either offsides or not. They got both of them wrong. It's almost like a makeup call. We took away a one there, so we better give them the other one. No, both were wrong.
Yeah, we're kind of tired of makeup calls, and we still see them. We're kind of tired of, or at least I am, goals being taken off the board on iffy goaltender interference. There's 2 or 3 issues that are, and again, they're not really going to be addressed. The league's already told us based on the last meeting, not much is changing.
So Game 7 for Sharks, Golden Knights in San Jose tomorrow night. So we'll have a double header because the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had a chance to clinch and advance in the playoffs for the first time since 2004, as they have done 3 times in this series when they had a chance to clinch or control the series, came up real small and let the Bruins take control and chased the game for most of it. They lost 4-2 to the Bruins, forcing a Game 7 in TD Garden tomorrow. And Russ, the thing that irked me was that they get the lead early. They have all the momentum. They take what I thought was sort of a ticky-tack penalty from Tyler Ennis. And the Bruins have absolutely dominated the special teams in this series. 5-on-5, I think Toronto's been the better team. The Bruins are 7 for 16 on the power play. Over, I think it's 40, yeah, 40 some odd percent, 43%. That's Edmonton Oiler bad. That's how bad it is.
And the last couple games, Chara's been a force again.
Yeah.
And that's been a big factor too. What I look at, there's a couple things. First thing is we talked about the roster. They have very few black aces because Babcock won't play them. So you don't have a lot of options in a Game 7 where I like to see coaches put in an odd guy in Game 7s because you never know what's going to happen. Nick Petan would be a perfect guy to put in there because he's hungry and he's fast. And you never know. He might get a goal for you, a big one, and something that you need. But instead, he's going to play Gauthier, who looks slower than I've ever seen him in his career because he's big. Antiquated decisions by Mike Babcock are going to cost him. Yes, he can blame it on Kyle Dubas. Leafs Nation can blame it on Kyle Dubas. But there's still a coach there that's not doing that much to spark his team. He might be yelling the crap out of them behind scenes, but during the game, he doesn't seem to be getting that upset. Post-game, he's apologizing for the team. Like, there's a lot of things that Babcock is not doing exactly right now. He's still not out of the series, so we can't, totally kill him yet. But the idea is you have a lot of great parts there, and some things aren't working. Nylander's not working. If you put Nylander out and put Nick Petan in, I wouldn't even care. I'd say, you know what? That's fine because Nylander could cost me a game the way he's playing.
That would be akin to Joe Torre dropping A-Rod to 8th in the lineup in a playoff game. I mean, that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, but man, at a certain point in time, you've got desperate times require desperate measures. I'd also like to put out an a missing persons report on John Tavares.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
Well, no, I mean, I when I talked to Russ before the show, I said after Game 3, in the first 3 games, the Tavares, Marner, Hyman line were dominant. They were responsible for mostly for winning Game 1, and they neutralized the Bergeron line in Game 3. After that, they've disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big problem for the Leafs because I mean, Austin Matthews after game 2 is sort of really kicked it into gear. Now he has 5 goals, and he's been what he was the first playoff season when they played the Capitals. He was dominant player, but they're not getting much out of Marner. Marner, I think, has been, I don't know if he's hurt, but he got pancaked by Chara at the beginning of game 4. And he's still playing and he's still trying and he's still doing, but he's not being effective in generating offense like he did. Tavares is the same. Hyman got hit by Marchand at the end of game 4. I don't think he's operating at 100%. But then, everybody's got bumps and bruises at this time of year. You've got to fight through it. And the Leafs, they need, especially with Kadri out, they need Tavares and Matthews to sort of operate as 1-2 and provide problems to the Bruins. And honestly, when Bergeron takes over, I mean, they lost that game yesterday and it was on the power play, but they could not shut down Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak. They've never been able to. They've done it for a game here and a game there in this series. But when it all comes due, that line takes over.
So couple things. Let's now at least look at this season and say William Nylander's drop off. He's got 8 goals, including the playoffs, in like 60 games.
Yep.
The drop off has been precipitous. It started because he was late and he was a holdout. It also started because you correctly said it and I correctly said it. Should have been sent down on a conditioning assignment. He never got in shape. He never got in sync. He's been out of sync all year. This is like a lost season for William Nylander. That hurts the team because, believe it or not, they still need a guy like that for secondary scoring, and they don't have it, right? So that's
a lost season on a front-loaded contract making over $10 million.
Yeah, they're getting killed on that. And that's something that's definitely going to be brought up as post-mortem if they lose this series. Another thing that sort of made me laugh is Marchand yesterday in the news came out and said he hasn't liked the TD Garden ice. When they practice, they might as well practice with a tennis ball so they can at least mimic what's going to happen on the ice in Game 7. Like, I have to tell you something. There's a limit if I'm a Bruins – if I'm in the Bruins hierarchy or I work for them or if even I'm the ice guy, there's a limit to what I'll take from Brad Marchand because he's the best player on your team. He may be taking it a bridge too far on that one. You're getting ready for a Game 7 in your building, and now you're complaining about the ice?
Yeah,
come on, man.
Well, I mean, he's making excuses because they lost to Toronto twice on the road or at home. So
I just thought it was bad timing on that.
Well,
yeah, but you know what? The ice should be okay. There's no basketball. The Celtics cleaned up, like they're done.
Yeah.
Like they swept. So, and you got to remember these multi-use buildings and stuff. It has an effect.
Oh no, it does. But I'm just saying, Peter, shut up. He doesn't need to talk about it.
Well, Russ, he's back. He can flap his mouth because when it comes time, he scored goals in a big game.
Yeah.
Russ, I mean, look, the only reason you're saying that is because he slapped his mouth so many times. That's the lowest of low-hanging fruit.
Maybe,
and everyone knows it. And he just happened to just be public about it. And he's being honest. I mean, here he is. He's being honest. He's being open. He's being candid. And now we're saying, shut your mouth. Nah, that's low-hanging fruit. If he's going up and saying like something else a lot more specific. I want a French kiss Kadri when he comes back.
Okay, but here's the thing.
That's something we need to go after.
Here's my problem with it. I don't care that he brought it up. Why are you bringing it up before Game 7 in our building? He could have said something the first game.
Yeah.
Why didn't he bring it up then? If it's been a problem all along, why
maybe he should lick the ice. That'll work. But this is the problem. And looking at it from a Toronto perspective, they took a 1-0 lead in the series. Boston came back and punched them in the nose. They played one of their best games of the year in Game 3. Boston comes back. Chara pancakes Marner. They score 2 goals. The Leafs are chasing them all night. They lose Game 4. Game 5 was a pick'em game. They get a break on the Matthews goal. They win 2-1. Boston was the team with the back against the wall, and the Leafs played like that. They played like a team that was verklempt, for lack of a better term. They disappeared for 30 minutes I think the stat was they were outshot 20-2 after Riley scored the goal to make it 1-0. Good teams do not disappear like that.
You know what the other thing is too, Mike? Right now, they're acting like the Bruins are like that bully that steals your lunch money every day when you go to school, right? Yeah. And the Leafs aren't doing anything different. The Leafs aren't calling like somebody else's brother to go to school with you so you could take care of that guy. The Leafs are rolling with all the same.
What is this, my bodyguard? But
go. The Leafs are rolling with all the same guys. So they're going to get their lunch money taken from them again. I mean, I don't see it going any other way unless he gets into overtime and then anything can happen. But the Bruins play the same way they played last game. Absolutely will.
And I'm sorry. I do. Some people were playing the inexperienced card. My butt. This is the third year in a row, and they're in the playoffs. They played Washington. They played the Bruins last year. This is year 3. You're not inexperienced anymore. You're not all 20 years old. You're 21, 22, 23 years old. You've seen playoff games. You know what it takes to win. And last night, there were very few guys on that roster that did what it took to win.
You know what did? Nazem Kadri is more important to the Leafs than William Nylander.
Well, yeah, and see, okay.
There may have been people that believed otherwise. Now it's you know for sure.
You can't overemphasize one play, but the play, the two things that have gotten a lot of play on Toronto in the media and on Toronto radio this morning, if you listen, and I did. One, Babcock pulled the goaltender with 2 minutes left to go in regulation with the Leafs pressing for the tying goal. They didn't have full control of the puck, and Marchand scored right away, and the game was over. And they're criticizing Babcock for pulling the goalie too early. But I've watched all 82 games. I've been to about half of them. He pulls the goalie around 2 minutes most of the time. So that I don't think you can criticize him for doing what he's done all year.
Right.
The other thing is, in the third period, Trevor Moore steals the puck along the boards and feeds it into the slot where Nylander is going toward the net, and Nylander looks like he is hallucinating. He doesn't even see the puck. He misses it. He doesn't try for it. And I watched the replay 3 or 4 times, and what I found is that Brandon Carlo was coming out, and if Nylander would have taken the pass, Carlo would have hit him, and that's why I think he was lackadaisical on that play. So I'm sorry.
And something to build on that play, by the way, Carlo had a great game.
Yes, he did.
That was something where he raised his game, and I think you're right. I think he intimidated him.
Yeah, and you look at the difference, and I've been saying this all year. I've been saying this for 2 years. Look at the difference between these two teams: Chara, Krug, McAvoy, Carlo, and Grzelcyk is your number 5. Those are your top 5. And with the Leafs, I think the only 2 guys who play on the Bruins defense would be Riley and Muzzin. After that, I don't think anybody, Dermott might battle for a 7 spot. Gardner, I don't think he's good enough defensively. Hainsey's 38 years old. Nikita Zaitsev, no thank you. I mean, that's when you put up the 2 defenses against each other, that, the Leafs are 2, maybe 3 deep, and the Bruins are 5 deep. And in a 7-game series, that makes the difference.
Look, if William Nylander were a running back in the NFL, he would go over the middle the same way Ricky Waters did for the Eagles and, alligator arm it so he wouldn't get killed. That's what that play tells you.
Yeah, and
you got to be willing to pay the price. You do.
And Peter, I know that, Mike Babcock was asked after the game about, history and them losing Game 7 in 2013. Okay, that has nothing to do because the team is completely different. Totally. They played in the Game 7 last April. They were ahead going into the third period, and they folded like a cheap suit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That has an impact on this year's team because almost all of these guys participated in that game. So when you say, well, third time's a charm and last year means nothing and history doesn't mean anything, bull crap. It does. And that's why I think a lot of Leaf fans right now, when they heard 4 words, Game 7 in Boston, were saying, see you later.
Yeah. And I think the 2 guys who weren't there last year have not made enough contributions in the series to ensure that they're going to show up and make the difference. And that's Tavares and Muzzin.
I mean, Muzzin's trying. I think
I know Muzzin's fine. I mean, I'm sort of, I kind of look at him as like I'm expecting a little more. He's done what he's going to do. And that's, I'm just, but those are the two key guys, and Boston's only getting stronger, right? Like they're feeding off of this.
Yes,
and somehow the Leafs have to seriously, go through that Zen moment of understanding the past, owning it, and then letting it go so it doesn't repeat. And whatever psychological things, meditation, new age this or motivational things, Babcock or Tavares, whoever's going to say, someone's got to find the right way to release this. And if the only way to release it is to win, I'm worried for the Leafs. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I picked the Bruins in 6. I envisioned if a seventh game scenario popped up that the karmic pressure, I guess you could say, would be too much on this team. They have too many flaws. The best guy on the ice for game 6 was Freddie Anderson. Right. I don't think he was responsible for any of the 3 goals. And Tuukka Rask had a pretty good game for Boston, so I can't take anything away from him.
Marlowe's dead man walking. Like
that's
another big problem for them. They're going to have to move him.
He may retire, Russ.
He may retire, but if he doesn't, they're going to have to move.
Right, but he's got a no move, so if he doesn't want to go anywhere, he doesn't have to. But this is the thing. Talking about Babcock and his comfort level with certain players and how it's detrimental to the team at points. Ron Hainsey's playing over 20 minutes and has done that for most of the year, and I think at times he looks spent. In the last 5 minutes of the third period, Austin Matthews led the team in ice time. The second guy was Patrick Marleau, and Patrick Marleau has looked gassed since game 2. So I don't think Babcock is doing himself or the team any favors by his comfort level with certain players. But that's been the MO for him all year. It's been the MO for him for his entire tenure in Toronto, going back to Matt Hunwick. So it's like he uses certain guys. He uses them in roles. Nobody knows why he uses Martin Rinson because the guy sucks. So, I mean, and when it's in a playoff scenario, a coach always falls back on what's comfortable. And what's comfortable most of the time is not what's best or not what's right. So we'll talk about pregame for those two 7-game series tomorrow. We have to end the show right now. But just one quick thing, just a little quick thing. Norris Trophy nominees came out. Giordano, Hedman, and Brent Burns. I had a little problem with that. I thought Riley, with 71 points this year, deserved to be in the top 3. Russ had mentioned John Carlson.
I had Giordano 1, Carlson 2, Riley 3. Carlson had I want to say, what was it? Did I say 150 blocks, Mike? Way up there on blocks besides the amount of points, and Riley needs to be in there too. I get Victor Hedman's a great defenseman. This was on reputation this year. Sorry.
And Peter, that was the point I was going to make, is the fact that as we've seen with other trophies in the present and the past, a player has to play 2 or 3 years where he's Norris Trophy caliber to even get a nomination. And the guy who establishes that usually hangs on for a year or two too long. I hate that. It should be deserving based on what they do in the season, not their resume. Yeah,
that's true.
Anyway,
I still give it to Giordano.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's gonna be Giordano, but has he ever been nominated, Russ? Even I don't know if he has.
Not that I can remember.
I don't think he's made the top 3 before.
The top 3 is what I'm talking about. Yeah. I don't remember now.
Yeah, I mean, usually you don't pop into the top 3 and then win it, but who knows? We'll see. All right, we'll discuss more tomorrow. There's some other things that Eck wrote about over the weekend regarding the Edmonton coaching and GM scenario, which should be, we'll talk about that when he's back tomorrow. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.